Hi guys, welcome back again. Welcome to another sewing tutorial on the channel. In today's video guys, I'll be showing you how to cut and sew this beautiful fitted and beaded kimono. I'll be showing you guys how to place these beads in such a way that it doesn't overlap. If this is what you're looking for, please kindly watch the video to the end and do not forget to like. If you find it so interesting, don't forget to share the video, leave me a comment, let me know what you think about the tutorial, and most importantly, please kindly subscribe. So guys, without wasting much of your time, let's get started. So guys, I'll be cutting the front and the back together, and as you can see, I placed my fabric on fold. We have 4 layers on my work table, and as you can see, the front and the back are not on the same page simply because the back has a zipper allowance. Okay, so I'll start by drafting, and then this is the shoulder line for this style, and from the shoulder line I'll go ahead and mark the vertical measurement. So basically what I need is the bust line, my waist line, and the hip line. So I have the hemline as my hip line since it's a blouse. Okay, so I'll go ahead and draw out the lines. So I extended it in such a way that it should be very straight and precise. So like I mentioned, the bust, the waist, and the hip line. So I'll go ahead and place the quarter of my bust circumference, the quarter of my waist circumference, and then the quarter of my hip circumference, and then I'll link this point together as you can see. So what I'll simply do next is to mark the cut together sleeve, though it is not the full length of the sleeve, but I marked 19 inches. And as you can see on the style illustration that this blouse has a ruffle. So I went ahead to mark out the neckline. The neckline for the front pattern is 4 inches by 4.5, and then the back is 4 inches by 1.5. Okay, so I also went ahead to draft the shoulder slope, so it's down by 1.5, and I linked it to the neck width. I'll go ahead and create a semi-curve linking the full sleeve to the hip line. Okay, and then I'll cut out the neckline and then cut out the pattern. So guys, having done that, I went ahead to separate the front pattern from the back pattern. As you can see, I just simply removed the pin to separate the front fabric from the back, and then I simply realized that I was yet to cut out my shoulder slope, so I had to replace it back. So at this point you have to realign the cloth in such a way that the front pattern is properly placed on the back pattern, and don't forget your zipper allowance. Okay, so this simply explains that an oversight can happen to anyone. So I just want to appeal or just encourage all the beginners not to be too hard on themselves, that it's just one step at a time. So I'll just go ahead and cut out my shoulder slope that brought me back, and then don't forget to add your seam allowance on the shoulder seam. Okay, so that it doesn't have anything to do with your the full length. Okay, if you don't add the shoulder seam while joining your shoulder, it may affect the length of the fabric. Okay, so just put your shoulder seam. So for the shoulder seam, I just added 1/2 inch, and then I went ahead to open up the zipper allowance for the back, and then I secured it with a pin. Okay, so the next thing to do is to bring out the cutout, to remove the cutout on the front pattern. So down there on the hemline, I went up by 0.75, and then I linked it up to the neckline. So it depends on how wide you want it. You could do 1 inch rather, or 1.5. It depends on how you want it. And then I went ahead to notch that point where it ends on the neckline, and then I cut it out. Okay, so it's very easy. So for the cutout on the front fabric, which has more like an illusion feature, okay, so I'll go ahead and use a doll face to replace that pattern. Okay, so I'm folding it on fold, and I'll fold it again because I need 2 pieces of it. Okay, I'd wanted to use a Duchess satin, but I just had a little of it. It was not enough for me to do this. I just used a regular doll face satin for this part. So I just simply redrafted the pattern, adding half an inch on the side, but I didn't add any seam allowance on the neckline, simply because I wanted the seam allowance to drag the neckline down to 5 inches. Remember that we cut 4.5 inches for the neck depth. So by the time I close it up, I should be having around 5 inches. So I'll place it right side facing each other, and then I'll stitch up the neckline. Okay, so you can see that I've closed up the neckline, and then I top stitched. Please remember to top stitch to relax the neckline properly, and then notch your seams. Okay, so this is it. I've notched the seam, and then I top stitched on the wrong side. Just flip it open and top stitch on the wrong side. It's not difficult. Then I'll go ahead and top stitch the side. Okay, I'll place it properly, top stitch the side, and I'm going to be placing this cutout part, the door face, on the required part. So I'm going to place it accordingly and then attach it to the fabric. Don't forget that we notched that point. Okay, so guys, I've joined it, and this is what we have. We have concealed our neckline, and this is the wrong side of it. So guys, I simply use the main fabric to cut out the lining both for the front and the back pattern, and then I'll use this lining to completely close up the neckline and cover up the seam. So I'll just place it this way and then stitch it. Okay, I'll stitch it from the neckline down to the hemline, and then I'll flip it. So I'll do it for both sides too. What I did for this side, I'll do it for the other side. So this is what we have. I'm going to be turning the back so that we'll see what it looks like. It's more or less like an inseam finishing. So you can see how concealed the neckline is. The finishing is just so clean. And then this is the back. You can see what we have. Okay, you can see that we have our stitches inside. Okay, so the lining has been used to cover up the stitches and completely cover up the neckline. So this is the back pattern. I've actually used the lining to turn up the neckline and the zip allowance, and then I stitched up the zip allowance with a temporary stitch. This is the front part of it. So I'm going to be closing up the shoulder. So I'll place it right sides facing each other, and then I'll stitch it fabric to fabric, lining to lining. Okay, I do this all the time, and then I also do it for the other side, lining to lining, fabric to fabric. Okay, I'll just take it to my sewing machine, and then I'll stitch this up off camera. So guys, after stitching, ensure that you relax your seam. Okay, so guys, I've actually stitched it. You can see how it is. Okay, and then I went ahead to top stitch the side. So what I'll do next is to take the full measurements of the round circumference, but I'll basically do from the shoulder seam to the other shoulder seam, okay, to make it easier for me. But I actually need its full circumference, but I'll do half first and then multiply by 2. So right here guys, I have 67 inches. So I'm going to be multiplying 67 by 2 to give me 134, and then by 1.5, okay, to help me get the amount of fabric I need for the ruffles. So guys, multiplying it by 1.5, I have 201. So you can see the total ruffle is 201, and then I'll go ahead and ruffle it up. I'll just gather it back to 134. Okay, so you can do multiply it by 2 inches, but 1.5 is just fair enough for me. And the width of the ruffle is about 4 inches. Okay, plus add your seam allowance. I added 1 inch to turn it up, and then half an inch for joining. Okay, so I'll go ahead and place it this way, right sides facing each other. Okay, I opened up the zipper allowance to make it easier, a lot more easier. So I'll just stitch up the ruffle, attach the ruffle to the fabric. Okay, so you can see I've done that, and I also attached the zip. Okay, the zip, I placed the zip. You can see the zip on the back pattern. Okay, and then this is the inner part of it. Okay, so it's very easy to achieve, guys. Okay, so what I'll do next is to place this fabric on fold to be able to stitch up the to create the fitness on the kimono blouse. Okay, so I came down by 10 inches for the armhole, and right there I'm going to be placing the quarter of my bust there. Then on the waistline I'm going to be marking the quarter of my waist there, so I'll just grip it with a pin. Okay, and then on the hip I'm going to be placing the quarter of my hip, and then I'll grip it with a pin. Okay, just to mark it. I am trying to be very careful not to use a chalk because this is the right side. Okay, so I'm going to flip it to the other side, and then I still have my pin showing there, so I'll simply detach it and then secure that point with a pin. Just pull it up a little bit and pin it. I still have the marks for the waist. I'll pull it up and place a pin there just to indicate, and then I'll pull up the hip line a little bit just to indicate. I also flip it to the other side and then detach it so that the pin is just on this side. I don't know if it's the explanation is clear. Okay, so I'm just trying to clear the markings on both sides. You can see that I've opened it up and I still have my markings on both sides using a pin. So I'll take it to my sewing machine and stitch it up. Okay, so guys, you can see that I've done it, and the next part, which is the most important part, is the beading. So guys, for the beading I'll be using a fishing line. So for this fishing line is about 0.03 mm, then a size 11 needle. I have my scissors and then my crystal bead. I've actually done one. This is just an illustration, and then I'll do another one for us to see. I've threaded my needle and then I knotted it. So from that point I'll just come down by half an inch and then just take my needle in and out, inward and outward, just to secure it properly. Just have in mind that I've actually knotted the thread. Okay, so it's just take your needle and then pass it inwards and then outwards like a couple of times, maybe like 2 or 3 times, just to be very sure that it's actually, you know, strong. So you can now go out when you're satisfied with the number of rounds that you have done. You can now go ahead and start taking your beads. So I'm going to be taking my beads in strand. Okay, I'm not going to pour out this bead. I'll be working with it in strand. So I'll just use my needle and then pick up these beads gradually. I think it's a lot more easier like this than, you know, having your beads just poured inside a bowl and then taking your time to pick it one at a time. So it's a lot more easier this way. Okay, so I'll just simply pick this up, and while you're picking, you're checking, okay, to be sure that you have gotten the amount of bead that suits that particular place that you have stitched. Okay, remember that we're trying to avoid overlap, you know, so you have to, while you're beading, while you're collecting your beads, you have to keep checking. And should, in case that you have more than enough beads on the strand, there's still room for you to remove some part of it. Okay, don't just manage it and you see it's looking too somehow, you get, just collect enough, and then when you feel that you have gotten the amount that you need, you can now go ahead and then, you know, knot your thread on the fabric. So just watch me. I'm sure you understand the process as I pick up the beads. So guys, I think I've gotten as much as I want, and you can see that it's very relaxed at this point for me. So I'm going to be passing the needle down by half an inch from the previous one, and then I'll go ahead and knot it. Okay, just pass it a couple of times and then knot your thread. Make sure it's, you knot it like 2 or 3 times so that the stress, it won't be, you know, it won't just cut, or it won't just loosen up after you must have gone through this rigorous process. So I'll just cut it out and then we're good to go. So this is it. So I'll go ahead and knot the thread again. You can see how it is. You can see that it's not overlapping, it's just relaxed on its own. You can actually do this on a mannequin if you so wish, but I actually did this on my work table. So I'll do another one for us to see. I've knotted the thread, and just like I did for the previous, I'll just take it in and out and start picking the beads. Okay, so for you to achieve this, okay, one of the major things I did was just to, thread my needle. I think I threaded my needle, as many needle as possible, because in a pack of this size 11 has about more than 15 needles. So I just threaded it and then I kept it. Okay, it was almost evening, so I knew I couldn't bead at that point in time, so I just threaded as many needles as possible, and then I kept it. And the next day, as early as about between 3 a.m. to 4 a.m., you can say your prayers. And then the environment was so serene, was so peaceful. My kids were asleep, and then my needles, all threaded, and then I started beading. Okay, it's best to bead when you're very relaxed, not beading when you're in a hurry or bead when you're tensed. Beading is best enjoyed when you're relaxed. So, like I explained, the environment was very peaceful, and then I was so emotionally stable, and then I started beading. So it was very enjoying. Doing this was very enjoyable. You get? So guys, I think we're almost completing. The line is almost filled up with the amount of crystal beads I need to complete the third row. Okay, so I'll go ahead and attach it when I've gotten the amount I want. So guys, I think I've gotten the amount of beads that would suit the third row. So I checked to be sure that it's well relaxed, it's not overlapping. Okay, so I think that this is enough. Okay, and if it's more than the required amount, there's room for me to also remove some. Okay, so I've checked it and it's good, so I'll go ahead and then pass my needle inward and outwards. Okay, and then knot it. So just watch me and then you see what I am trying to do. Okay, so I'll pass the needle down by half an inch. The distance between one bead and the next is about half an inch. Okay, so I'll pass it inward and then I'll pass it outwards. Okay, so I'll do it for a couple of times that I feel it's okay for me, and then I'll go ahead and then knot it. So guys, I'll use a scissors to cut out the needle, and then I'll go ahead and knot it because I realized that the thread was already short. So I'll just use my hands to knot it properly. You can see that I'm doing it a couple of times to be sure that it is well secured. So guys, when I feel that I've knotted as many as possible, I'll go ahead and cut it out. And then we're good to go. So you can see what it looks like. So I'll continue with this process till I get to the end, and you can see as it narrows down, the amount of bead required will be very small. So by the time you come down, it will be a lot more easier. Okay, so I'll do this off camera and then we're good to go. Thank you so much guys for watching. Please do not forget to subscribe if you enjoyed the video and learned something. I'll see you guys in my next video. Have a blessed day.